Welcome back. We can't not talk during the breaks because there's so much going on. Philip is still with us. Johnny, what questions do we have in the chat room
I've
for
got
him?
some questions. Well, what's great is that Phil organically answered one about the Harpoon missiles, so that was pretty cool. That was from Carla Lessie. David Fisher's asking, can you ask Phil what American independent contractors would be doing in Ukraine?
Independent contractors, in terms of military independent contractors, they may be doing things like actually taking like literal wish lists. I mean, if they're Raytheon or if they're Lockheed Martin, they might be, or or whatever it is. They might physically be here, going, "Hey, do you need night vision goggles? We'll sell them to you at cost." That sort of thing. Do you mean military contractors in the sense of like Blackwater guys? I haven't seen a lot of those. They may be here. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if somebody's doing that, but not in any significant numbers. They don't need to be here. Again, the Ukrainians are going to fight this war on their own, if for a variety of reasons, not least of which is because they don't want Russia to have the narrative that they're just puppets. And that it's really so America is and the NATO is they're going to give them the guns, they're going to give them the weaponry, but it has to be the Ukrainians that do it, and the Ukrainians are like, okay, sure.
Right. There's also there have been foreign fighters who have folded into the Ukrainian military. They're allowing people to come in, and they're and so there is some element where mercenaries or which is the rough and tumble word for these contractors could come in mass as a group and be sent in one particular place as we're just foreign fighters who are here to fight the Russians, when in reality they are actually they're going to be wearing Ukrainian uniforms, they're going to be given Ukrainian kit, but they might be sent in for other missions, and that's possible.
Yeah, they might also be here under the auspices of being contractors, because then they get to wear civilian clothes.
Right.
But really, they're they're still reporting to somebody in Langley,
right,
at the Pentagon.
They might be there. They might be there. They might be there just flying drones. They might literally be there in a.
I was military intelligence for 25 years. I retired 6 months ago, and I just happened to be here as a contractor.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. What are the odds? Right.
I believe you 100%.
Let's grab another question, Johnny.
Sure. Sharon is asking, what's to stop Ukraine from hitting Russian cities in retaliation?
I mean, nothing. Not really, except for the fact that I think the Ukrainians would only do that in a strategic way. I don't think they would try and take territory. They might try and take. If you'd have said this to me even a month ago, I would have said you're crazy. But they might try and take back Crimea. I would have said a month ago that the Russians would fight to the death for that because of the Black Sea
because it's
Fleet.
the lifeblood of the country, right?
Again, they might not have a say in the matter.
Yep.
But as far as like going into, say, Rostov or Volgograd or some of these oblasts, these states that border Ukraine, there's nothing in it for the Ukrainians. Again, this goes back to something I have said since the very beginning, since we started talking all those months ago, and when I was in LA. This is all about Ukraine finally saying enough is enough. We are not a thoroughfare. We are not a crossing point for you to traverse through us on your way to fighting the empire that you really want to fight. And so you're just using us as a crossroads. We're done with that. We're not going to do that anymore. We're a country. We have a language. We have a culture. We have a history. We're a nation. That's
we also
talk about.
Yes, and also, as of 2012, have oil and gas deposits discovered both in the Black Sea on the southern coast near Odessa and inland in the eastern part of the country past the area where Russia had taken it, and in the mainland area south of Kiev, that is equal to the oil and gas deposits in Russia. Beyond the fact that Russia can't get its oil and gas to market, which is the conversation I don't think anybody's really having, and why Germany finally came around to win. Oh, wait a second. The discoveries made in 2012 and the institution of Western technology to get that stuff out of the ground and to market on behalf of the Ukrainians after the companies like Burisma were broomed of all their corruption by, weirdly enough, Rosemont Seneca and the son of Joseph R. Biden coming in there and going, you're going to spend the money where we say you're going to spend the money. I'm here as a shepherd for this cash. You're not going to take it out and give it to Russia. All of a sudden, Europe's 30% of their oil and gas they get from Russia, they could get all of it from Ukraine alone.
Yeah. There's a couple of things about that. Firstly, I think that is an absolute valid point, and that there are nuts and bolts economic reasons, and their assets and there's material. But the very fundamental thing about this war is the fact that these people, for the first time in their history, are going to have and I can't overstate it enough. It's not possible to overstate it. These people have a home now.
Yeah.
They have a home. I mean,
that's right.
I know we can all kind of relate to that on a personal level, but magnify that to a nationwide level. These people have a country now.
Mm-hmm.
They've been trying to do this for 500 years. They have a home.
Yes.
I mean, that touches all of us, I would think. I mean, that's a human desire to have a home, to have a place that you can call your own. And that's what they're doing here. Yeah, they're a huge breadbasket. Information, like information technology and all the rest. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that brain drain that's coming out of Russia right now, that ultimately they come back here, because this place is going to be a dynamo.
I agree.
It's going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, people were teasing me about this at dinner tonight, but I said to them, now's the time actually to invest.
Right.
Get in now. Get in now while the market's low. Go buy a second home on the Odessa coast.
Right.
Nobody's doing that right now because nobody knows
afraid. Right. Because you can't get insurance. But
that too. But if you're speculative, you can get it on.
Yeah, sure. Land. Right. Yeah. It's the future of Airbnb in Odessa is hot. But what I would like to say is, in relation to what you're saying, the idea that they have a home. Partly the reason you feel that is because the country you call home has a future, has potential, has everything you would need to have a functioning country. Like, they're not, just because Afghanistan has been freed from the Western oppressors, the people who are associated with the Taliban aren't like, finally, we have a home. It's none of the same feelings. Not even close. The 12 tribes there are still fighting. They're going to be fighting forever. It's ridiculous. The same thing is true of sort of Persian Iran. Persian Iran, the root of Iran that still exists. Those people, if they ever broke free of the mullahs, would have that feeling the way the Ukrainians do. It would be much closer to that, because it's a resource-rich country with a lot of tourism and a lot of potential and a lot of intellectuals and a lot of culture that could once again be reintroduced to the world. And Ukraine has basically been going through that since the fall of the Soviet Union. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, and it's something they've been trying to get for 500 years. Now that they have it for this one of the longest period of times in their history, they're not going to let it go. I'm looking at the clock. I'm realizing we're running out of time.
Yep.
One thing, I am not a spook. I am not a spy. I sometimes speak like it because I'm very careful about my contacts, and as a journalist, I don't want to burn
in a war zone.
So I don't want to burn my contacts. So that's why I kind of speak ambiguously sometimes. So I'm careful about that. And just as we wrap it out, Johnny, is there another question?
Yeah, we got one more from Dr. 13. In your opinion, is there anyone in the U.S. media who's reporting on Ukraine accurately? Or maybe who's the best?
I mean, boy, that's hard to say. I mean, Simon Ostrovsky is a guy that you want to watch on PBS NewsHour. Terrell Schwab is a great guy. Terrell's back in the States, and he's doing MSNBC now. He's been coming here as long as I have. Of course, Malcolm Nance. Lots of people. But in terms of networks, Richard Engel's pretty good over at NBC. I know a lot of people at CNN who are very good on the ground here. But, corporate media is corporate media. There's a reason why I'm not working for them anymore. So, take your information where you can get it.
I enjoy Operator Starsky. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a Ukrainian.
I know of him.
He's a Ukrainian soldier who's been doing updates every single day since it started. He does a daily vlog from.
Yeah, and there's
from battle zones.
There's a guy that Malcolm Nance turned me on to,
Mm-hmm.
Ilya Polyonik. I'll try and get the name and
Okay.
pass
Yeah,
along.
tweet it to me, and I'll send it out to
And
folks.
no Kate McCucci, because I don't have time this month.
That's right. Nope, we were out of time on that one. And we're at the end of the show. Philip, thanks for being with us. We greatly appreciate it.
Had to go to that meeting.
No, we get it. I'm glad you were there. I look forward to hearing more of it. How about Monday morning on the regular show, on my Monday morning show, you could come on and be a full guest for the morning show. We can schedule it now, and we'll do that.
Do you want to talk a little bit after we go off air?
Yeah, after we leave the show, people want to drop in at infotainmentwars.com and Twitch. We got to go. Everybody on WCPT, we will see you very, very soon. We'll see you next week. We're here every Saturday. Thanks so much, and we'll see you then. Thanks, Chicago. Yeah, peace. Hold on, and I'm going to hang that up, and hopefully when I hang that up, audio doesn't go away all of a sudden. That's always the tough part. It's this... anyways, we'll stick around for a minute. Johnny, you got a minute? You got an extra 10 minutes in you, 15 minutes in you? I've got, because I know people still have questions, and it'd be great. You've been collecting them, so you might have still had those.
I don't have any more written down.
Oh, good. Okay.
Didn't tag me in anything
I
more.
have a couple of comments. Like Hal Vickery said, the money was going into the hands of the oligarchs, not the military, in regards to the gear on the ground. And I think that relates to my nuclear conversation earlier, is that let's say you're a military commander and you're siphoning money off. I brought this up on the live stream, and some people may know this, but you know there's not really going to be a land war in your head. Putin talks about this shit, but it never happens. And then you start siphoning some money off. You're like, well, this money can go into my pocket. And you do it over the years, and it starts to build. And then it is, like as long as there's fresh stuff to send into Georgia, the occasional reach out in Kazakhstan to put down a riot, something like that. But you don't need a lot of gear for that. You just need a lot of dudes and guns. That's cheap. Yeah. Guns, you're always going to have fresh guns and gear for them to run around in. You're going to have a couple of like missile trucks to drive down the street for some sort of dumbass parade. And you're going to have the fancy trucks that'll get taken care of. Everything else sits in a fucking warehouse. Nobody's ever seen it. And so if you're siphoning money off and not paying it the upkeep on it, you get to pocket that cash. Well, how much do you think they're going to do that with the nuclear arsenal?
Terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, since we're off the air, fuck anybody who actually propagates GRU talking points and the idea that the Ukrainians.
Right. Oh, hold on. Right as you said that, your audio went dead. That's so funny. Hold on 1 second. No, I think it's just your earphones or something. You're quiet now, but I hear you. That's so funny. Hold on. Mute back. Johnny, can you... What happened? Did you get a message? Oh, he went away and he came back. That doesn't look like Philip at all. I'm just saying he's going to call back in. Johnny, you muted yourself, did you not? And
I did. I'm sorry, I was coughing.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay, so Philip's going to call back in a second, but
his trying to make it be like, oh no, the audio is fine, Hal, and you're like, yeah,
like everyone is gone. Okay, Phil will be back. There he comes. Here he comes back in. Hold on, I'll bring him back in. We should be fine. Phil, there he is.
I am just not able to swear. I guess it's a sign from the gods.
That's right.
Yes,
fucking hell! What's wrong with you bastard? So
I'll keep it PG. But anyway, anybody who is telling you, anybody who's supporting GRU talking points, the argument that came out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, was it last night?
Mm-hmm.
It was last night. I was on with, who was I on with? I was on with KNX in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And literally right before I came on air, I saw this announcement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because I monitor them in Moscow. Mm-hmm. And the argument that they were putting forward that the Ukrainians had actually shot the train station themselves,
right? Because
they hate Donbass, they hate the people in the Donbass so much that because they had collected at a train station, the Ukrainians had taken the opportunity to, I guess, kill people who were fleeing the Donbass, which they hate because they were from Donbass, although they were trying to flee Donbass, and that's why the Ukrainians killed their own people.
Right. It's like Jimmy Dores bullshit
just,
about, and Aaron Monte. 14,000 deaths because of Ukrainian shelling since the separatist regions broke off. I'm like, motherfucker, those are the people who got killed by the Russians there. They're wiping out Ukrainians.
Proxy.
Yes, the Russian proxies are brooming human beings out of that area.
Anybody who tells any of your listeners or viewers that Ukraine would do any of this to themselves, just to stick it to the Georgian, just to stick it to the Donbass or to the Russians, it's lunacy. It's lunacy.
That's a legit talking point that like they're just faking this.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they've been doing that all along, right? Yeah, everything that comes.
I've seen a couple of streamers, live stream guys that come out when something happens. There's this guy, I won't say his name, but there's a guy up in Kharkiv who comes out and immediately starts saying, Zelensky is actually this puppet, and he doesn't even want to do it himself. He's being forced to do it by the Pentagon and Langley. It's just like, dude, shut the fuck up.
See, it's just and this is again, you and I have talked about Jimmy Dores' talking point on this, and he's not letting that talking point go. He's going to ride it to death. Like, even though it proves a lie every goddamn day, every day that passes, it gets he digs himself deeper and deeper into this hole, and yet the argument is that the Ukrainians deserve what's happening to them, men, women, and children alike, because they're Nazi adjacent, because 9 guys in the Azov battalion in 2013 did a Nazi salute at a party, and so 44 million people deserve to be broomed from the face of the earth. It's frigging disgusting.
Leslie, it felt fucking brilliant. Thank you for asking.
For being able to swear. It's great. Yeah. It's so freeing.
I hope someday that people like Jimmy Dore are held accountable for the bullshit that they're saying right now. I know they probably won't.
Nope.
But it's reprehensible. It is incredibly damaging to morale. It makes me really, really angry, because it come to this country, you jackasses, you morons.
Right.
Shut the fuck up.
These are so.
Talk to these people, and then you tell me if these are the kind of people that would kill one another. That theft. I can leave my laptop at a cafe table right now in this town in Lviv, and people won't steal it. And that's not because they're so good natured or whatever. It's because there is a sense in this country right now of like, I'm not going to fuck my fellow Ukrainian over. Because it's all hands on deck. Right. And I'm not going to, even to the point of like, I'm not going to steal your stuff because I don't know who you are. Yeah. And also,
you might be helping. You might be some. Yeah. You might like. I might participate. In the undermining of it. Right.
Exactly. So these people that say this kind of crap, that the Ukrainians could do this to one another, I hope to God someday they get a comeuppance, but no.
They won't, except in their interpersonal lives. They will.
Well, they're sad people.
They will. Yes, they will boil boil in the ocean of their own hatefulness.
We're both gonna tell. And I grew out of that, and I think you did too. I remember back in the day being a Gen Xer. I mean, if you watch reality bites nowadays, we were a spoiled bunch of pricks. We really were.
Right.
Gen X were a bunch of spoiled. I'm so angsty.
Right.
I do have one more question.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Ed's 3D Tech asks if I can ask Philip if GOP fundraising will drop because of Russia frozen assets.
You know what? In all seriousness, maybe. I mean, I don't know how many people in the GOP are beholden to Russia, but Russia spent the bang for the buck that they get by compromising a few GOP congressmen and women. You get a lot of return on that. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Look, I would not be surprised at all if there were members of the GOP that the GRU has a couple of naughty pictures of them, or even not just that. I mean, that's lascivious and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't be terribly surprised if somebody went to because this is what you do when you're cultivating an asset.
Right.
And I'm not a spy master or anything like that. Again, I'm a journalist. I'm not into espionage. But I
Right.
spend enough time around spooks to know that this is one of the things they do. Is they go to you and they say, "Hey, we understand you're having trouble meeting your mortgage payments this month. Let me take you to dinner and maybe we can make an arrangement and you can, we'll make sure you pay your mortgage for the next 6 months. And then when you pay your mortgage for the next 6 months, at the end of the 6 months, they come to you and go, hi, my name is actually Vladislav, and the money that we've been giving you is coming from,
Right, from the Russian Secret Service. Right. Yeah.
Now
Yeah. Well, that the other aspect of it as well is that, and somebody brought this up in the chat room, the RNC was hacked, just like the DNC was hacked, except the DNC stuff came out and the Russian stuff and the Republican stuff, I say a Freudian slip, the Republican stuff didn't. So they just held on to it. Yeah. It is either.
I'm really sorry we didn't have a chance to do much more today. I would have liked to, but boy, the things that the meetings I'm having in the last couple of weeks, especially since Bucha, I think Bucha was a real big moment in this.
Yeah.
Because I think it was when a lot of NATO states said, "Well, we can't sit this out anymore. We can't kind of do it half-ass. We're going to have to do it." And there have been people showing up in this town that I'm having meetings with that are telling me stuff I mean, it's not secret squirrel stuff. I mean, they don't tell me stuff that's classified because they don't want to lose their clearance. But they're bringing my attention to certain things that are, let's say, sensitive.
Well, one of the things that
it's going to go well for the Russians, and it's not going to be years.
Yes,
and it's
agreed. The other thing is that the proxy war, the actual, the proxy war argument that a lot of people are making, that this is just the U.S. and NATO having a proxy war with Russia and using Ukraine as the chessboard to do it, is the opposite, by the way. It is Russia's proxy war with NATO that they started by doing this to Ukraine. So NATO didn't start any of this stuff. That's just garbage. And us supporting a country that's being attacked by somebody who wants to start a proxy war with Russia, with NATO and the rest of our allies, is a reasonable act by free-loving people. So it's just garbage. The whole, the aspect.
And in addition to that, the Ukrainians are all on board. They're like, fine, okay, if you want us to be the proxy for it, fine. As long as we get to have our country at the end of the day, then that's fine.
Which you do. It's the difference between being, the concept of a puppet state for the West or a puppet state for Russia is that eventually we take our hand out of your ass. The Russians never will.
They're not going to be a puppet state. They're not.
That's what I mean.
A puppet state. They're going to be a partner. They're going to be a full-fledged.
That's
partner.
right.
And also, I mean, look, I know I keep coming back to this point about how privileged I feel being here, about being witness at the birth of a nation, and this being the 1776 moment. And I know it sounds trite, and I know it's a little over emotional, but I do love this country, so I do have that emotion within me. But I do feel, in many ways, I mean, like, look. There's that line out of Hamilton, which I know you think is overrated, but I like it a lot.
I don't think it's overrated. I think it's racist. But that's it. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. I'm even willing to give you that.
And anti-gay.
I'm willing. That's not the hill I'm willing to die on.
Understood.
There's a line in it when they're having the cabinet debate where they do it as a rap battle, and Jefferson says to the rap battle, when we were up against death's door, when we needed money and guns and ships and half a chance. Who gave us that? And Madison says France. And in return, they didn't ask for land, just the promise that we would take a stand and stand against tyranny and all the rest of it. That's what's happening here, and we're France. We're France, and we have a mutual enemy. Ukraine and the West have a mutual enemy, like it or not. I know we don't like to paint ourselves as being an enemy of somebody else, but Putin decided, and Russia a long time ago decided, many in Russia decided that the West is the enemy. Okay, buddy, you want to pick a fight? You want to pick a fight, and there's this other country that only their greatest sin is the fact that they want to have an independent and sovereign nation. Those two things align just fine. And if the enemy of my enemy, and I can help create a nation state and a free and independent Ukraine,
Right.
and as a benefit, as a fringe benefit advantage, we get to take out one of the worst despotic autocratic systems in the world, which is a massive malign player on a global stage. Okay.
Good. Yes. Also, I would like to say to anybody who doesn't know what Philip is talking about in this particular instance or hasn't had a chance to see Hamilton, more than likely your state has a Lafayette Street, a Lafayette Square, or a Fayette County, or a Lafayette County. And the reason it does is because there wouldn't be any counties at all if it hadn't been for Lafayette helping us. And specifically...
Or the Polish guy whose name escapes me starts with a P. I mean, go to Chicago. I mean,
Pulaski.
Pulaski. I mean, they have Pulaski Day in Chicago for a reason.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's an integral part of it. And again, which side wants you to just be your own country? Now, there's this idea that, we only want to do this so our industry can move in. Our industry can take them over. This basically industry in America are indistinguishable, and therefore our Exxon and Chevron are going to move into Ukraine and it doesn't. No, the Ukrainians still own that stuff. It's still theirs.
Yep.
And we're already doing that technologically in Russia. Exxon, Chevron, Russia's only able to get their oil and gas to market because of American technology, and maybe some of BP, some UK. I would give them one company in that regard. But Western companies are the way we get oil and gas out of Russia. So if it's equal, or that's the only reason we're doing it, then why would we give a damn if Russia ultimately took Ukraine? If all we're doing is going in there to exploit the oil and gas, well, guess what? We'd be doing that if Russia ran the joint. The point is the freedom of the people to make their own decision about who and what gets to come and do businesses in their country should be up to them. This is a war about sovereignty, and Russia started it.
Yeah, and I don't think in either Washington or Brussels, at least I certainly hope not, and I don't think they do. If they are under the impression that they can come to Kiev and tell Volodymyr Zelensky what to do,
right? No, well, no, and they aren't.
Part of the point. That's part of the point of the Ukrainian independence movement is they have been a pawn in greater power struggles their entire history, and they're done with it. And that includes what? Have you heard some of the stuff that Zelensky's been saying about the West? He's been scathing about the West. They are not going to be puppets of anyone. They may be partners.
Yes.
They work in conjunction. They may want to join the EU. They may want to join NATO at this point. Again, that's something that I didn't think was ever going to happen, or indeed that I thought.
There's no way they don't after this settles out. There's no way they don't, because for their own safety. Even if Russia breaks into 3 countries, which is a very strong possibility, they're still going to be right on the border of the strongest part of Russia.
They are not going to be pawns. They are not going to be a puppet state. That is their entire history. Their entire history has been being a puppet state, and they're not going to do it anymore.
No. And we have no interest in them doing it any more than we try to make France a puppet state or Belgium a puppet state. We don't do any of that stuff. We have there's no purpose because everybody's
because of our relationship with the Brits. We kind of have a different kind of, there's a transatlantic kind of, and then there's that special relationship stuff that goes on. So we oftentimes use Britain as kind of like, hey, it's not just us that wants to go, or the Brits are going to come with us. And I say that as a British American citizen.
Well, and also the other way around too, because that's ultimately it was MI6 and and they're messing around in Iran. That caused a lot of that cascading effect that people talk about with the Shah and the like. That was not a U.S. endeavor. That was not a U.S. endeavor. But people have linked that forever. Now, what I would like to say, what I was talking about the nuclear aspect of things, is that if there is a version of this where the strong arm of Russia plays out militarily in Ukraine, and they're allowed to get away with this, allowed to salami slice a huge chunk off after this and retain control of it, which they aren't. What that does is that actually that raises the possibility of tactical nuclear warfare in both that part of the country to finalize a border area around the oil and gas fields north of it, and the use of tactical nukes in Georgia and Chechnya going forward. If Russia is pushed, if we create basically a mini version of the Cold War with this, where they get their ass handed to them by the Ukrainians in Ukraine, and they spend basically every dime they have, which is exactly what they're doing right now, and all their future, fathers, effectively, in this nonsense, which they seem hell-bent on doing, the chances of them, offering forward some sort of giant, nuclear affront to the world gets smaller and smaller by the day and not greater. And so that's crucial. Part of the reason why the rest of why all the NATO countries, other non-NATO countries, and the U.S. are like all in on us, beating Russia on this soil and pushing them back is because they seem hell-bent on spending every dime they have, every last dime they have, because they're running out of dimes really quickly, on this particular chunk of ground. And they will have no material ability to support any other tactical systems. And the other thing is ABM. ABM is dead. The anti-ballistic missile treaty, which we said, we have all these things that can shoot your nukes out of the sky. We're not going to park them near you so that we have mutual assured destruction. So we won't stop your nukes. Like with the technology we have, we could fire nukes at Russia. If they fired back, we could destroy theirs in the air. We have that technology. We do. But in the ABM treaty, to try and make nice so that Russia could enter into the world again and not ratchet this up into a battle, we've been saying we're not going to put ABM sites near you. We are absolutely going to have ABM sites around Russia from now on. There's no way that's not happening.
My whole issue with the ABM thing was when we started to do that in the late 90s, we gave the BS excuse that it was because we were afraid that the Iranians were going to get a nuclear weapon, when clearly we were doing it to counter Russia. So, I mean, the fact that we kind of handled ABM badly, I think.
I agree, but there was a predicate. The reason we handled it is because we were trying to play nice. We were trying to incorporate them back in. In 1997, they signed that NATO agreement because the idea was that they would eventually join NATO, and Russia would be a part of NATO in its pushback against.
Yeah, we would be partners with them, and we could play nice together.
That's right, against the Stans and against Afghanistan and against Tajikistan and any craziness in Syria and Azerbaijan and that kind of stuff. We were worried more about that and oil being the key matchstick in the whole thing. That was terrible. And so we were like, maybe Russia on our side isn't such a bad thing, especially with the rise of China, because China was apparently at that point, especially under the delusion that they exist in their current form without the West protecting shipping lanes and providing them with the predicate for the Belt and Road Initiative to exist at all. They somehow fell into the illusion that without Western industry and Russian and Ukrainian farms, that China would exist in its current form. And it cannot. There's just no way.
I also think we screwed up when it came to Putin, because we thought a lot of things about Putin that were wrong. And I actually, I know I've told this story and I know you know this, but I was in Moscow.
There's new people watching. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I mean the apartment buildings. When the apartment buildings went up in Moscow as a predicate to allow him to go into Chechnya so that he could look like a strong man.
Mm-hmm.
I have been screaming ever since 1999 when he did that from the rooftops to anybody who would listen that this is not a guy that we can trust. Yes. Because if he is willing to do that to his own people, eventually somewhere down the road, when things don't go well for him, which inevitably they won't, because he is going to rob the place blind, and eventually people are going to start to dislike it, he is going to need to find an external enemy.
Right.
To blame it on so that his people will not have an open revolt. And I was saying that in 1999, and we never should have been as cozy to Putin as we were. We did it for immediate and medium term goals and objectives. Like when we went into Afghanistan, we wanted to use their base in Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyzstan. you know.
Well, the
we turn
illusion
blind
was,
eye.
the idea is that in the West operates under this, this kind of naivete of democracy. That there is an effective naivete necessary to democracy. It's brand new on the earth. It didn't exist. Autocracy, dictatorship, theocracy, and monarchy and slavery were the way of the world since humans started knocking boots with Neanderthals, and didn't stop until the West stopped it. The UK put blockades on slave ships. The United States fought a civil war over it. Up until that point, it was normal everywhere. It's still normal in a good portion of the world. The Russians
American
and the
experiment, the American Revolution, these terms are not mistakes.
No, and the Russians and the Chinese are currently taking slaves. Do you understand? Like, genuinely, they are currently taking physical conscripts, forced fighters amongst their own people, and seizing the people from other countries. The Chinese are currently engaged in a genocide against the Uyghurs. They are wiping out people in an entire section of the country because they just want to use it as a nuclear testing ground.
The Russians treat their general population the way that they treated the
as serfs.
The serfs, from the beginning of time. So
that's right.
Have I ever said to you one of the other things that I have a couple of these things that I like to say about comparing Russia and America and all the rest of it.
Right.
One of the things that I have said for many years about Russia is that when the fall of the Soviet Union happened, we in our hubris, and it is hubris because we really do genuinely believe that this is the idea of liberal democracy is just this thing that will take hold because it's just what human beings want. But it
won't do it automatically, and it takes yes, go ahead.
Right, and you have to push back against those guys who have vested interest in it not happening. But I have said for years that in our hubris of thinking that after the Soviet Union fell, that it would be our system that flooded into them. What actually happened was that their system of a kleptocracy and a mafia state bled into us. That is why we have. And we are going to have to. It's going to take years for us to do this, but we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to clean up the mess of all these guys that came over from the former Soviet Union.
One second, stuttering John just texted me and literally took out my headphones. Like, that's hilarious. Hold on. That's so him.
Do have to bail. We did it an extra 25.
So him.
Thanks, Johnny. I'm sorry it was so short.
That's
hope
so
you're doing
funny.
well.
He would do that. That's the one thing that causes this to happen. That's so funny. Johnny, you can hear him though, right?
Johnny is saying he can't.
Yeah, I can hear Phil.
Yeah, hold on.
You can.
You guys can talk amongst yourself. All of a sudden, I'm the one that can't hear. That's hilarious. Hold on. Let me do this. Turn on the monitor. This kind of.
I hope you're doing well.
Go away. Jesus Christ. Hold on one second. I know what I'll do. Give me a second. There we go. I see. All right. I see something. Hold on. So funny.
Thanks, Tim.
Where is it? Good Lord. I can't. You guys can hear each other, but you can't. I can't hear you. Hold on one second. That's so funny. What a
How
weird.
Can you hear me?
Drop off thing. Hold on one second.
You can't hear the broadcast at all. Something disconnected.
There we go. Got it. Fixed it. Now I have to turn on. I'm going to be on Stuttering John's show at 1:00 my time. He's already scheduled it. I've already said yes, and then he's blowing up my phone asking me if I want to come on today. Yes. John, I'm on right now, you maniac. Right. He does this all the time. Anyway,
tell him I said hi, Johnny Million.
I will.
Right, I'm going to bail now.
Okay. Yes, I'll let. Yeah. So,
I'm always game.
Excellent. I will, Johnny. I'll let you go, and then I'll keep. Let's see. I'll bring on.
You know me. I'll gab for as long as you want.
That's right. All right. Bye, Johnny Million. See you later. Okay. There we go. And let me put in. There you go. this guy, and I think I have, yeah. All right, I have to put your Twitter handle back in there. Whoops, hold on. Whoops, there we go. But yeah, so you're whoops, 1L.
No, I have an echo now. Oh, great.
That's okay. We'll fix it. Don't worry. It'll come back. Don't worry. That's temporary. Fear not.
Calling in from the Temple of Doom.
All right. It's the transfer over from the other thing, so it just takes a second to kind of fix itself. Should be all right.
I am happy. You are happy.
Let us be happy together. Right. Okay, there we go. And then I'll put you there, and then ta-da. Okay, your Twitter handle is now on screen, so there you go. Yeah, so...
Well, no, so I was just saying, we thought that our system would go into theirs. That after the fall of the Soviet Union, it would be naturally our system of liberal democracy, because who doesn't want that, right? And instead what happened was their kleptocracy bled into ours, and it's going to take years for us to clear that out.
Well, it's because that's active versus passive measures. Our form of governance in its current form is passive. We all take it for granted. The rule of law is something we have never grown up without it. So only on moments like where stuff like January 6th happens, do we have a moment where we're like, holy shit, this might, maybe I've been assuming this will go on unabated and I was wrong, but most of the time we're like, yeah, this is rocks. Why would you not want this?
Yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it's mostly Russians that bought out stuff in Trump Tower, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in London. I lived in London for 20 some odd years off and on. And I saw it all the time. CBS's bureau used to be in a part of London called Knightsbridge. Mm-hmm. And Knightsbridge is a really ritzy part of town.
Sure.
And, the amount of Russian that I started hearing in the early aughts on the streets of Knightsbridge, I was like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. And they were showing up to unscrupulous property owners with suitcases filled with money that they had emptied out of the coffers, and their corruption bled into us as opposed to our liberal democracy bleeding into them. Do I still have an echo?
I don't think so. I think it's echo coming from Phil only. Huh, that's weird. I don't know why that would be. Your bike. Yeah, your bike. Hold on. Let me do this real quick and turn it back on. Hopefully that'll fix it. Let's see. We should be.
Let me try my headphones.
I don't. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, because I don't hear an echo in that. So you sound fine to me. It should, in theory, go out the same way it comes in. Hello. Again, active measure versus passive measure. That's what we're dealing with. That the American system has been running on a relative autopilot, but for and that's what we've been taking elections for granted all this time. While they've been undermining the right to vote for minorities for a couple of decades, the Republicans at least have been in theory, running on equal footing, as they run for office. We know they've been mucking about trying to stop good voting machines from getting in places or whatever, but they haven't turned into an active measure attack on democracy until recently. Well, the Russians have been doing it forever. And the minute 1990, and like I said, I'm of the belief that maybe Gorbachev and Yeltsin were honest actors in all this stuff. But everybody behind them and on the sidelines, it dropped out. He'll be back in a second. Everybody on this, that was a weird, some sound coming back. I hear you, but I don't see you. So everybody around him was just using this as a rope-a-dope. Hold on. I'm going to switch to... he went away, and he'll be back. He's calling back in, I think. Oh, there he is. Hold on one second. Joining. We'll put him in guest 1. I'll take this guy out. Guest is in green room. He's welcome to be here. There you go. You're good. Add. Let's see. Oh, I've got to add him in here. Hold on one second. There you go. There you go.
Oh, look at that question. Surrender Monkey is asking, how well would Matt Gaetz do in Russian political circles?
Oh dear God.
Actually,
We're seeing it.
He would work pretty well because he would be compromised. I mean, look, there was this guy who just died, Vladimir Zhirinovsky, and Zhirinovsky was a pretty, he liked his parties and he liked his girls and all the rest of it, but he was a useful clown that Putin could trot out occasionally and use. So Gates could be actually really useful. I mean, the same way as what's his name, the idiot who
Goser?
left to
Gomer?
run.
Devin
No,
Nunes?
the idiot who left, Nunes, who went to go do the social media. BS.
Right.
All those guys are perfect for an autocratic system because they're idiots and they're easily controllable because you know where their weaknesses and their vices are.
That's right.
The guys who wouldn't do well in okay, let's take a Republican. Romney would not do well in Putin's Russia because he doesn't toe the party line. Anybody who is speaking out, I mean, that's why Trump is so much a product of Putin and autocracies, is because he wants to create a system very much like that. So, well, we're having all sorts of technical difficulties with
No, we're good.
and the rest of it.
I think we're
all right.
I think we're good now.
I'm happy to keep talking until you go to Stuttering John. I'm happy to stay here as long as you want.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm picking away at it. I'm solving it behind the scenes as stuff goes on. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I think the idea of a possible nuclear strike and all that fear mongering around this is Russia's way of sort of attacking the West's desire to do something about this. They basically that mutual assured destruction, which used to be the predicate for not starting a nuclear war, has become a predicate for letting them do anything they damn well please, and that's the part that's falling apart. In terms of Russia's desire somehow to, I guess, scare everyone away from protecting Ukraine.
Well, it's because they've got nothing else.
Right.
They have absolutely nothing else to deter us.
Yes.
We've woken up to the fact that their military is a paper tiger.
Yep.
We've woken up to the fact that they are nothing but malign actors on the global stage, and that they have no real good intentions. We've woken up to the fact that they gaslight everybody.
Yes.
We've woken up to the fact that they are just spreading corruption wherever they can, and those tentacles are everywhere now. So what have they got? What have they got to defend themselves with, or to persuade the global community?
Right.
And it's either their soft power that they've put into places like Africa, for example, or they've tried to make a relationship with China, and I think Xi is running a mile from them.
Yep.
And it's their nukes, and it's and when they turned energy into a weapon. So now that we're starting to get away from all of those things, because we recognize that if you let Putin and the Russians, whoever comes after Putin, if you let the Russians control the narrative and control and run the show, because you're afraid of what they're going to do, then they're just going to do whatever they want. And it's
Well, and again,
it's unacceptable.
That's active versus passive. And this is why we have, in the West, why we have issues with like policing and criminality. Criminality is an active measure. Policing is a passive measure most of the time. It is responsive. And so after a while, after you've had a policing system for a long time, you start to take it for granted. It's the old Lenny Bruce thing about like people, throwing stuff at cops and calling them a fascist. And he's like, fascist, I'm the mailman. I'm here doing the job you don't want to do. There's this old like Lenny Bruce had this bit about how like we got to have some rules here, otherwise we're never going to get any sleep. So we eat in area A, we sleep in area B, we throw our garbage in area C. Guy goes to sleep, wakes up, get a face full of garbage. It's like, hey, I thought we had a rule here. Well, it's a religious holiday and it's not your religion, so it's your ass. So we can't do that. I don't care who it is, your mother, brother, your aunt, nobody gives a shit. A, B, and C, or we're never going to get any sleep. And so they hire a cop to be the guy who makes sure A, B, and C are followed. And the cop is the example of A, B, and C. He's not a person in and of himself. He's an established element of the order that everybody needs just to get on with life. After a while, you take that for granted. And you kind of should be able to. We often talk about things we take for granted and we shouldn't. But if you pay taxes and all those kind of things, you should take it for granted that there's minimized crime and corruption and SEC can go after people and that regulations are followed so you don't have lead in the water, that kind of stuff. We should be able to take that for granted. And when it does fail, we can squeal a little bit and somebody will fix it because there's somebody to fix it because we've already established A, B, and C. In Russia, they are in the business of disassembling ABC. They don't want the eat in area A, sleep in area B, throw your garbage in area C to exist at all because they operate entirely on the destruction of the simplest order of life for society. Because that's where the money is to be made. That's where death happens. That's where poisoning happens. That's where theft happens.
Unless you're in the elite. If you're in the elite, you get to make those rules. But
sure,
everybody
but
else has got to live by the.
Yeah,
everybody else has got to live by the rule of might makes right.
That's stratosphere ruling. That's where you've got different laws at different levels of the stratosphere. But ultimately, that is anti-society as well. You got it. Yeah.
Bicycle Mike, Mazel Tov, 2 years cancer-free. Yay for you. Brenda, I did see that article. It was in Rhine Novosti, which is one of the most prominent
what article?
newspapers in Russia. It was an article put out by Rhine Novosti, which literally, in some ways, said, here's the final solution to the Ukrainian question. The Ukrainians who are Nazis are being supported by a petty bourgeoisie. It was almost like communist ideology that the bourgeoisie are only allowed to rule because of the petty bourgeoisie. So so we as the working class have to have a revolt against the bourgeoisie, and we have to take out the petty bourgeoisie. The same argument was made in our newspaper called Rhine Novosti. It's actually a news agency, saying that because of the Nazis who run Ukraine are supported by these nationalists who support the Nazis, we have to take out all the Ukrainians. We got to kill all the Ukrainians because
this is exactly because there are some Jewish bankers, the Jews have to be wiped out. Why is that not? It's the exact same argument.
Exact same argument, and it's terrifying that a major news outlet.
Right.
It just tells you how quickly things are devolving in Russia.
And by the way, Aggie gave a super chat, and she said, I went to Ukraine for the first time in 1993, then in 1995. Amazing development between the visits. I wonder where my colleagues at the university are now. And then...
Come and see.
Yep. Say what? Thanks for the super sticker. I appreciate that. And then Raymond said, this discussion and HSRPM every Saturday is everything we should be discoursing at all times among our peer groups and media. Well, it would be nice to be seeing this shared because Phil and I are yelling into the wind a little bit when it comes to the bigger propagandistic websites, especially on the right-wing lefties, which is the Russell Brands and the Jimmy Dores of the world, who are actively involved in pushing that exact narrative, that the denazification of Ukraine is a legitimate argument and that the people who are being murdered and raped in Ukraine deserve it because they're Nazi adjacent. I don't know how anybody can utter that kind of phrase on the regular and not finish every day punching themselves in the face. I don't get it, but
because also the Russians have started putting out. They've been really smart about this. Of course, they're smart about it because they study us.
It's all they do.
I mean, that's all they do. They focus on us. So they've done this whole thing where they have gotten to a point where they have equated nationalism with Nazism. So when Ukrainians say, I'm a Ukrainian nationalist, what they mean is literally, I believe that Ukraine should be a nation state. And
Right.
the Russians have they have done a really good job of selling it to the reactionist left and right by equating nationalism with Nazism, and it's not the same thing. It's amazing. About a week ago, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on their social media put out an entire documentary about this, in which I speak Russian, so I was able to follow along with it in the native Russian as opposed to the subtitles. And what the Ukrainians were saying to the kind of pro-Russia, we should be buddies with Russia, Donbass is what we're doing in Donbass is wrong, and all this kind of stuff. But what the Ukrainians were saying back to them in Russian, by the way, it has to be said, was saying basically, no, I just want to have my own country. I mean, I'll speak to you in Russian because you're talking to me in Russian, and out of courtesy, I'm going to talk to you in Russian. But no, I think we should have our own country, and I think you're full of it, and that's why I'm a nationalist. And the subtitle was like, I want, Ukrainians for Ukraine, and Ukrainian nationalism means Ukraine, Ukrainians, you have to talk Ukrainian. And I was like, that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
And if it's just so easy.
Well,
to
the other
follow.
thing,
And then, I mean, even I saw Anna Kasparian. I know we feel the same about the TYT crowd, but Anna put something out yesterday, and I just couldn't help but respond to it. And I shouldn't take the bait, but it's like, it's this simplification of I guess they want a black and white, or I guess they're so afraid of like standing up against a bully because they don't want to. Let's not get in a fight. Let's talk. Sometimes you have to punch the bully in the nose.
I will go even further than that. First of all, Cenk is a bully. And so they operate in a building with a bully all the time.
Right.
And so they are
Right.
bully averse. Yeah. Of course. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Everything is right. Right.
Mm-hmm. And they have to, otherwise they catch shit. So they dealing with bullies, in their workplace, they've also maximized their passive response to it, their passive aggressive response to it, and also minimized the effect of it in their lives, because when they think the word bully, they think of a dickhead who's always yelling in their ear about stepping on his punchline or whatever he was talking about in a meeting after the broadcast, and then going off to scream at somebody who works behind a counter. So when you and I are talking about bullies, we're taking a word that's relatively small, a schoolyard word, and applying it to someone who is sending people in to rape and murder people. And as we are euphemistically upplaying the word, where they are euphemistically downplaying the word all the time. Now, the other thing is that they are so committed to the idea that they have been sold for the last 4 decades that America does no good in the world.
I love this point.
Every adventure that America has gone forward into, and the ones we don't, is America bad. Think of Rwanda. America did not act in Rwanda, and we should have, and so America bad. America did act in, say, Afghanistan, and we shouldn't have,
Serbia.
and therefore America bad. Right, Serbia, yeah. Any of those places. With the illusion that goes with that sort of passive-aggressive dealing with a bully in their own environment, that if we just would stop, if everybody would just stop talking for a second, if we just step away, if I could just leave the room, everything will go back to, it'll normalize out. When in reality, we especially now know, and I would say to anybody who thinks that American adventurism or that we're playing the cop of the world or we're being the soldier, we're trying to enforce democracy at the barrel of a gun, any of the stuff that the Bush administration may have tried, that a lot of us protested against, and why I voted for Joe Biden, and why I voted for John Kerry, and why I voted for, for Bill Clinton, and why I voted for Barack Obama. That's why, because it does matter who has their hands on the controls of this country, because it can be it is an extraordinary tool, and it can be used for good or ill. And if you want it to be used for good, in a choice between what you think is the lesser of two evils, always choose less evil, or you're not making a choice at all. But when it comes to American, support for Ukraine, or our work with NATO, or any of our outreach in the rest of the world,
USAID.
Yeah, USAID. Without it, there are hundreds of millions of dead people. Sorry. The minute if we cut off USAID tomorrow, 100 million people will starve to death in 6 months. Nobody is there.
I love the fact that organizations like TYT, or the people who have that mentality about the Americans, they always fixate on, and again, I looked up what it was that I was responding to Kasparian about, and it was just that. It was this whole narrative, like, people who think about what Russia is doing is terrible should really reconsider the fact of all the things that we did. And I couldn't let that go. I couldn't.
No.
I know I shouldn't have risen to the bait.
Yeah, it's lazy whataboutism, and it also puts stuff on the same. It puts it equates the
false equivalency.
It puts it on the same control structure, because we have more of a say in it, and we can shit on our government all we want, and we're in the habit of doing it because that's another thing we take for granted. Because as much as I despise Jimmy Dore and his bullshit, hateful, violent, grotesque narrative, every show he does is an example of how great this country is, because he can go on every single day and call everyone who works in our government any number of awful names, assume the worst in everyone, make bad faith arguments every single day because of the country he's in. And if he was in Russia or any of these other countries and he tried it in an afternoon, he would vanish. Edward Snowden, for all we know, is dead, if not just gone right now. He has not tweeted since February 27th. And RT America was not shut down by the Americans. RT America, they folded their tent. You know why? Because as dickish as Lee Camp and some of these other people are about the United States, again, they can say all those things on our shores. They can say all those things because our system allows for it. The Russian system does not. And the minute it was known that Jesse Ventura, anybody who had a show on their network was going to get asked, hey, you're on RT, what do you think about the invasion of Ukraine? All of them, to the person, as much as I might think some of them are dicks or lying or bloviating all the time, all of them would not be able to say, I'm for it. Even with all their baggage, even with all their bullshit, I have no doubt that most of the hosts of RT America, like some of the RT hosts in Russia, the Russian ones, said, I can't support this. And that's why they had to shut it down. They can't let it exist because that's not their system. So as bad as our system is and as flawed as it is, the one thing it allows for is us to make changes. Every 4 years, we get a bite at this apple and we get to change this. And it does matter who runs it because the decisions made while in power will impact millions of lives all over the planet. But if the day we pull out and we just go, fuck it, we're not doing anything anymore, there is a power vacuum that will be filled by people who genuinely want the worst and most awful, and namely China and Russia these days.
The whole USAID thing. I mean, we don't toot our horn too much about that, and I'm not going to get into that angle about it. But I love the argument that you make, Hal, about how, and I'll defer to you, coming from Hollywood, that you were able to make this point, and it was a light bulb moment for me, is the fact that, like, all those movies that paint us as the bad guys that come out of Hollywood, we do that because we can.
Yeah.
We do that because if we paint ourselves as the bad guys, nobody's going to come after Hollywood. If we did that to the FSB or to, I mean, look what happened with The Interview, right? I mean, where they
Right.
kind of poked fun at the North Koreans, and there was so of course Hollywood can be comfortable going after
Yeah.
coming after America and painting
Again,
America as
when is the
big
last
bad guy.
when is the last time you saw a story about a CIA agent in the United States in any movie or television show where they didn't have to go rogue to do the right thing, they weren't fighting against a fellow CIA agent doing blowback, or that they weren't the entirety of the bad news in it, and the character that you rooted for was like, in War Incorporated or Lords of War, where they were a contractor.
Or they were just a two-dimensional action hero.
Right. Yes. And even then,
There's some of that, too.
they're usually the rogue good guy, right? They're like, I'm the one good person. Honestly, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's
And
nonsense.
so after, I mean, that really kind of started in the 70s, 60s, 70s, I would say,
Yeah.
where Hollywood started.
It
to be
ended
like, hey,
with 3 Days
you
of
know
the
what,
Condor.
Exactly that kind. Well, and then there was the post-Watergate period where there was an awful lot of cynicism and going on
Yeah.
and all the rest of it. So
And-
but
and-
after a half a century where we paint ourselves as the villain, are you really going to think that maybe some people aren't going to go, you know what? That's right, America.
We are the only
good.
person doing. I've never seen anything where
Anything bad.
where the GRU or they're actually almost everywhere. The only people they come in contact with that are part of a legit organization in fictional work right now, especially GRU or the Chinese services, are positive. They're almost never encountering.
Except for MI6, we have that love for the Brits.
No. What I'm saying is the adversarial ones. Literally, GRU. Anytime you see a GRU agent, with a rarity of the Americans, I suppose, as a series, but even that is like, I don't know, they're just trying. They were put in a bad position by their government, or that kind of thing. But the GRU and the Chinese spies are always like, we're on your side, kinda. I mean, we know these guys are bad, but ultimately, most of us are good guys. Like, so 80% of the GRU are good guys just fighting for their country, and 99% of the CIA is full of Tommy Lee Jones in Under Siege. It's just silly. It's hack at this point.
Yeah,
it's
we
hack.
do like to villainize like Russia. We like to use Russia mafia, and we love that accent. That accent is just dripping of like. Ugh,
yeah, but that's mafia. But that's mafia.
Yeah, no, I know, but this is.
That's
by the way, there was a
criminals.
question here. Bill asked me, what happens to Russia after the war is over? How damaged are they on the world stage, and for how long? Bill, I think this is catastrophic for Russia. I think that I think the West, the Brits in particular, the Brits and the Yanks in particular, are going to pummel Russia over this. They are going to absolutely pummel Russia over this. They're going to use this as an opportunity to defang them. Now, does that mean a collapse? Does that mean a breakup in the Federation? I mean, I don't know. Let's wait and see. That's been a problem for Russia for centuries. So,
right.
What happens after the war? Nothing good.
Have you seen? Yeah, no. I mean, they're already on the way out. It's just the reality of it. Have you seen any of Peter Zeihan's work? Have you ever watched any of his stuff?
Let's take a look.
Zion wrote a book called The Accidental Superpower, and then he's working on a new book that's supposed to come out soon called The End of the World is Just the Beginning. And it's about the world order as it's been since World War II, and how the U.S., with our Navy, policed the seas effectively and made world trade possible. And the only thing we asked in return from all these countries that we policed the seas for them was back us and not the Soviets. That's all we asked. We're not going to do it at the barrel of a gun, but if you want to be part of this new sandbox we're creating, all you have to do is be a democracy and allow your citizens to vote, or at least have some predication that you're moving in that direction. And we did that for forever. And China got on board with it to some degree and benefited from it, while sort of, we had to walk this line between, what China is and what China says they are for a long time, over the course of them opening up and becoming, more liberalized in their in their economy while the CCP still ran things. And that was always the balancing act. But ultimately, the idea is that where we screwed up with the Russians by thinking they would jump in and become a functioning, capitalist structure where everybody got along quickly, the Chinese were like, we'll slow pedal this and let them go at their own pace. And because we weren't in a Cold War with them directly. And so on the one hand, Deng Xiaoping's idea of liberalizing everything started working. It really did. Millions of people lifted out of poverty, not because of an action of the government, but because industry came in, food and resources came in. China is a net importer of food and a net importer of technology, and not including the stuff they steal. But that's been kind of growing like a Jiffy Pop for a long time. Unfortunately, it had to pop because they decided, oh, okay, now that we've got all that stuff, we'll go back to pre-Deng Xiaoping strategies and we'll become more draconian and we'll shut everything off. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work on the world stage. So we were like, well, tell you what, we're going to form TPP and we'll work with other countries that do want to let their citizens vote, including Taiwan. And that's the straw with China. The same thing is sort of true of the Russian world order. And Russia has been benefiting from the world order that benefited China because the eastern part of the country, the goods that come out of there, the fish, the caviar, the oil and gas that goes into the eastern countries have gone through China largely. So they benefited from the infrastructure
Timber
and all that stuff.
Is logging and timber? Is that
depends.
I'm deferring to you.
It splits two directions. The majority of the eastern stuff, the timber's no good because the land's frozen 80% of the year. It's permafrost. It's terrible.
It's all birch.
Over near St. Petersburg, that's where it ends up being used by the Swedes to make particle board furniture.
No,
it just
I'm
gets
well
ground
aware
up.
of that. I was
Yes,
just
right.
wondering if the Chinese. And
Nope.
that's why I said I was going to defer to you
Now
on that.
they've got a lot of trees. They don't have a lot of arable land, and the Chinese have been poisoning their farmland for the last 2 decades, and it's getting worse all the time. And when I was talking about that demographic shift that was going on in Russia, where they're at 1.2 births per female in the country. They were in 2012. They got up to 1.7. Now they're back down to 1.5. And this does not include premature deaths from war, which is all their, fuckable men getting killed effectively, which is what happens when a country goes to war, is that they sacrifice future generations, killing their 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. And so in terms of their demographic, not only are they half a point lower than most of Europe already, just in birth rates, but their premature deaths are higher. The suicide rate in Russia is 3 times that of most of Europe.
Yeah. Well, and they drink themselves to death. There's no getting around it.
Well, they have 300,000 excess deaths from cancer every year. The Russians lose like 2 million people. They have 2 million deaths a year. In a country of 144 million, that's a significant amount if you're only at 1.2 births. Now, the United States, we don't have that problem because we are always going to be an immigrant country. So if we don't have a birth rate, the best of the birth rate world over will find its way, including Russia's, will find its way here. The same thing is sort of true of some of the European countries, but less so when they have national identity that's wrapped around a race, like the French or the Germans or the Brits. It's still a minimal amount. You can't look on anybody's 23andMe and find American. It doesn't work that way. And so everybody can come here. So our demographic has not collapsed, by the way. We're having plenty of kids. But on top of that, the best and the brightest can always come here, and they can benefit from the system that we have. That's always been true. That's why, Mitt Romney's big plan was self-deportation. People will just go the fuck home, right? Which I don't know how that works, other than the fact that Mexico is probably demographically our only equal in our hemisphere. But over the course of Russia's, for the next 15 years, there is no reason to believe, war or no war, that Russia exists as a country, as a singular country, that it doesn't break up into 3 territories. And in 10 years, China's looking at the same thing. five
Or a
province.
looser confederation, maybe, or
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's predicting that is tough, because you're literally talking about hundreds of years of history.
But
But it has
they
always
aren't,
been.
because the Qin dynasty, which is
No,
when
I
we
mean,
started recognizing China as that. Um, that's been an artificial conglomeration since it started. It's required constant, but like harsh security to maintain. It requires barrel of the gun diplomacy to stitch that together. The United States doesn't have that problem. The UK doesn't have that problem, except you'd look at Ireland almost as that. Like imagine
the
six.
Scots.
Imagine six. Yeah, the Scots aren't having a war the way the Irish were
Scots
for
aren't
that.
going to do it. The Scots are going to do it at the ballot box. They're not going
Right.
to do it with weapons.
Imagine six Irelands stitched together around one London that is insisting it control everything, and then try to hold that together.
Yeah. Why do you think the Serbs are willing to accept their minor Slav status that they get from Moscow? No other, I can't think off the top of my head another Slavic nation that is happy to live under the thumb of Moscow. But the Serbs are fine with it because they're surrounded by people who would rather see
Which
them
is also why
driven
those.
into the Adriatic.
It's why a bunch of those Russian troops that are surrounding there, keeping that territory, can't go up to Ukraine and fight. And if they do, if they rotate the green conscripts down to that place so that they can move those guys up, everybody around there is going to go, these guys are fucking new. These are the guys who are getting their asses kicked in Ukraine. We can take these guys. It's a terrible position they're in. Anyways, I'm over time. I'm going to jump over onto John's show. And
always a pleasure. Shoot
love it.
me a line about Monday. Let's do Monday.
I will. So it's 9 a.m. my time. I know that's ass in the morning your time, but hopefully we can make that work. And and we'll. I'm sure everybody who has questions and conversation stuff can come back around then. And join me on then.
Shoot me a line. Let me know the
Love
specifics, and I'll call
Yep.
in.
That's right. Okay.
Sorry,
Awesome.
I only got about half. I'm glad we got to talk afterwards. I had to go
fear
to
not.
that meeting. It was worth it. So, lots more to come. Watch
I
this
insist.
space. Things are about to get really interesting here.
I agree. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the super chats and the support today.
Thank
Thanks.
you, guys.
And take care of yourself,
Thank you,
and we'll see you later. Bye. See you later. Cheers. Hold on. I got to jump screens.